You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.
It's time to pick the brains of the thought leaders who are shaping the derivatives markets. From exchange leaders to brokerage CEOs, rising fintech stars, market-moving traders, and so many more. We'll sit down with them all for the benefit of you, the listener. Now it's time to roll out the hot seat for another Options Insider radio interview.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again here. The producers, merciless on my throat, listeners. They don't care. No rest for the wicked. Throwing me right back into the fray after already putting 2 shows in the can. But you know what? That's what we do here for you on the network, listeners. Feeling a little bit under the weather after my sojourn to the Southern studio last week for the STA National Conference. Nonetheless, stay tuned to a lot of great content hitting from that. Some of that has already hit the pro side already. You can find that for yourselves, theoptionsinsider.com/pro, as well as, of course, Options Oddities, Pro Q&As, all sorts of other great exclusive content. But joining us today in the old hot seat, I am pleased to welcome him back. It's been too long. It's been 2 years since we've last caught up with Mr. Mead Wells, the co-founder and chairman of A Leg to Stand On, a.k.a. ALTSO. Mead, welcome back to the Options Insider Radio Network.
Thank you, Mark. It's a pleasure to be back, and I'm sorry you're not feeling well, but you sound great to me. So
I suffer for my art and for the listeners here, Mead, at the end of the day. It's all about the listeners at the end of the day. But let's start. It's hard to believe it's been over 2 years since we've chatted, you and I, here on the network. So obviously a lot's gone on in the network. We have new shows, new listeners since then. So catch our listeners up who are new. What the heck is ALTSO? What are we talking about here?
So ALTSO is an acronym for A Leg to Stand On, which is the name of a 501c3 nonprofit that was started over 20 years ago that helps children in developing countries by providing free prosthetic limbs, physical therapy, and mobility aids. So we work across the world and help underprivileged children have an opportunity at having their mobility and all the wonderful benefits that come along with that. So that is a leg to stand on.
Yes, also, listeners, I am privileged to have been to several of their events in the past. I am planning, as long as whatever I'm running with here doesn't knock me down for a little bit, I am planning to go to the event next month as well. But a lot to get to, and obviously let's start with the big dog, the elephant in the room, which is Rocktoberfest, coming up fast and furious, Mead. Let's start in New York first before we get to the one true time zone here in Chicago. What's going on October 10th in New York City, sir?
So October 10th, we're having our 21st annual Rocktoberfest at the Hard Rock Cafe in Times Square. And Rocktoberfest is a really fun opportunity for essentially finance professionals to perform in bands that are playing all sorts of rock and pop sets of music in front of an audience of their peers. And these are like hedge fund professionals, investment bankers, traders, the whole gamut. And you'd be surprised at how good these guys are. You know, like I said, I don't think it's surprising, but you know, you don't think of people in pinstripe suits being great on stage, but they actually are very musical, very talented, and type A personalities. So, the shows are actually really entertaining, really good, and all of that is to raise awareness and funds for a leg to stand on. So we're very grateful to them, and it's a really good opportunity to see some good music and to network and meet some people in the industry and do all this for a good cause.
I must admit, Mead, when I went a few years ago for the first time, I was a little bit skeptical. I was like, how good, as you mentioned, can these guys in pinstripes be on stage? I expected, let's say maybe a middling effort. No, these guys and gals really bring it on stage. I was surprised. Rocking out on guitar, singing, doing covers of songs you actually heard of that actually sound like the song. So I was impressed just from that perspective, Mead, at how much these guys and gals really bring it at the event every year, sir.
Yeah, it's fun to see that, and you get all the major press out there, the CNBC, New York Times, Wall Street Journal. All these guys are out there with the reporters kind of covering the event. So it feels kind of like a big thing, even though you may not know who these guys are. Some of these guys can be with very large hedge funds and very high-profile names. We've actually had a number of CNBC celebrities playing bands, everyone from Tim Seymour to Steve Leisman and various others that will jam, and it's really great. So I can't encourage people enough to come out and participate. The event in New York is on the 10th of October, as you mentioned, and then for those that are in Chicago, we have our event on the 16th at the House of Blues, which is we've done it there once in the past, but the last several years, as you know, we've had it at the City Winery. So the House of Blues is going to be a fun kind of back to the old school, rock kind of blues performance halls.
Yeah, I'm very excited about the change of venue. City Winery is fine, but sometimes when those bands get rockin' Mead, it's hard to hear the person you're talking to. House of Blues is a much bigger venue. You won't have that problem over there. Also, much more, I think, associated with just the rock scene than City Winery. City Winery is a good venue as well, but I was excited to see that. Let me just run that down again really quickly for our listeners on the East Coast. If you're going to be anywhere near NYC on October 10th, listeners, get in there. It is the Hard Rock Cafe. $300 to get in the door to support, again, some great kids out there. You're going to buy some great prosthetics for these kids. We'll get into those in a second. You get 5 hours of music. So if you just come in for the music, you get 5 hours of music on 2 stages, plus a dinner and open bar. What more can you ask for out there, listener? Then let's fast forward to the real event, Mead. The one everyone's really waiting for, right? Which is, of course, Chi-Town. New York's fine. It's okay, I guess. But, everyone's coming to the dance for the Chi-Town event. That is on October 16th. I am pleased to say I will be there, listeners, as well as perhaps some of our listeners out there. We'll get to that fun in a second. So October 16th, as we just mentioned, in the House of Blues. So right here in the heart of downtown Chicago. If you've been to Chicago, you know where the House of Blues is. $250, again, 5 hours of music on 2 different stages, dinner and open bar. A great networking event as well if you want to just catch up with people in the space and see what different people are working on in a variety of different areas, all brought together by that common interest of helping to support ALTSO. Then I heartily recommend you check it out there on October 16th. But we talked about the 2 events, Mead. Now let's get into a little bit about what we're raising money for. When I come in and I pay my $250 in Chicago for the House of Blues event, where is that money going to?
So that goes to help cover the cost of prosthetic limbs for children. It goes to help for covering the cost of appropriately fitted wheelchairs, for braces, for the rehab and the services, because as children grow, you can appreciate that, a prosthetic limb is going to need to be adjusted in order to adapt to the height of the child. And then furthermore, these children are in developing countries. The terrain can be pretty tough on the limbs, so they need to be repaired and fixed. So all those costs are covered with the donations that are provided through Rocktoberfest, and any donation that's made directly to a leg to stand on their website. But we're operating. A leg to stand on is operating in over 11 different countries, and we partner with local organizations that are diligent heavily to make sure that they are reliable, credible, and providing a quality of care that is going to be commensurate with what we would expect as a New York City-based nonprofit. And we leverage off of their existing kind of infrastructure, and we augment that through the provision of the prosthetics and the orthotics, which are braces. And we're in places like Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Cambodia, India, Indonesia, Somaliland, Romania, Pakistan, Nepal, Laos. I mean, it's just, so we're really deep in with many of these countries. And the impact is really profound, because it's not just the child that you're helping. In many cases, these children, because of their lack of mobility, they're dependent upon the parents to help them, get to school or get dressed, move around. They can't really play sports. If they're in an area where there's the threat of danger, it could be in an area that could be prone to flooding or avalanches or earthquakes, that type of thing, or, God forbid, a military area. They can't remove themselves from danger. So they're fully dependent upon a parent or someone else to assist with a lot of their daily functions. If you think about a child that's missing arms, everything they do, whether it's brushing their teeth or going to the bathroom, they need to rely on someone else to assist them. So, you don't think about the impact until you really spend time and understand how great it is. It's not just the mobility, which is an extraordinary thing because it breaks the poverty cycle. It helps to allow for independence, access to education, access to exercise, and even sports. And then down the road, access to employment. But what we often don't realize is that the impact of what we do in many cases is much more profound from an emotional standpoint, because children want to be like everybody else. A child does not want to stand out in a crowd, particularly if it's not positive. I mean, positive attention is always welcome, but it's the negative attention that nobody wants. And when you've got a disability, and unfortunately in many of these countries, they're not taught the social graces that we are taught in the West, and therefore they're stared at. And that's a hard thing as a child, to be walking down the street and having somebody kind of staring at you, and they don't look away. So, when we provide this support or these services, we're giving a child a chance to be like everybody else and to be anonymous, to disappear, which is in many cases all they want. They just don't want to be stared at. So often, that gets overlooked, and it's really important to emphasize how much that helps these children emotionally. And of course, the physical side of it is self-explanatory.
Yeah, something we've touched on in the past, but I think we can't really stress enough. Obviously, everyone thinks of prosthetics. They think of the physical support, allowing them to stand and walk and play and go to work and have a life and all the things that you get from having a functional limb again. But you're right. In these parts of the world, the social norms are different. Maybe some of these kids have been judged somewhat harshly because they're missing a limb through no fault of their own. So there's a psychological element that comes into play here with these limbs that maybe people who are just looking at it and saying, okay, I'm going to buy some prosthetics for kids who are missing limbs, they miss out on that. But I think the psychological part might be equally, if not more important, Mead.
Absolutely. I think, I've seen situations where, for as an example, there's a young girl, maybe 12 years old, 15 years old, beautiful girl. She was flying a kite that her grandfather made for using, components from a junkyard. He was kind of piecing together various things, materials that he'd found, and the line of the kite was made with a wire. And of course, a big gust of wind came along and blew that kite into electrical lines, and it sent a jolt of electricity down the metal wire, and it literally blew off her arms just beneath her shoulder blades, and it torched, it burned underneath her chin and in her torso. And here she is now without any arms, and her skin is terribly disconfigured because of the burn scars. And when she walked down the street, her sari, which is this is an Indian girl, and her sari, which is the common kind of dress that girls will wear, was the arms were pinned up, the sleeves were pinned up. So it was very clear that she had no arms. And she was the victim of a lot of just negative attention. And when we fitted her with the prosthetics, the first thing she did, the prosthetics that we gave her were upper extremity, arms that had opposing shoulder blade straps, so she could wrap a strap around both of the opposite shoulders and she could flex her shoulders back and forth, and that would create a pinching mechanism with the hand of the prosthetic. And when she realized that she actually was getting functionality, the first thing she did was start to cry, and she lifted up the hands of the prosthetics by just lifting up her shoulders, and she realized that she could shield herself from being looked at, much like you would naturally if you're starting to cry. People will cover their face because they don't want to be seen crying. And when she realized she actually was able to do that, the sense of relief was just uncontainable, and she just broke out into convulsions. The nurses asked her if she was okay, and she was saying yes, in between sobs, and she started to explain that every day, all day long, when she gets up, she needs to ask someone for help to go to the bathroom, to put on her clothes. If she has an itch or a scratch in the most personal places, she has to have help to deal with that. I mean, every single thing, to be fed, to wipe her nose, to rub her eye, to itch her ear, everything she needed to ask for assistance with. And so while the prosthetics didn't give her 100% functionality, it might have gotten her to 55%, maybe 60%. The value of that was so profound because it was a relief. It was an independence that had value beyond what we could ever imagine when we have all of our limbs. So that is just one story where you can kind of get a sense of how much it's helping these children just to emotionally to have the functionality.
We talk about, supporting these kids emotionally, as you said, but you guys have also been on the front lines really with some cutting edge science in the prosthetic space. Explain to our listeners a little bit about the Joshi prosthetic that you've developed and how you've been able to effectively develop a low-cost prosthetic that you can use around the world.
Yeah, that's great, Mark. The Joshi is a limb that we've designed with our prosthetic engineers, and it's named after one of the first the first prosthetic engineer that we worked with, Dhiren Joshi in Ahmedabad, India, who's just a wonderful, wonderful human being, and he's helped hundreds of thousands of children over his tenure as a prosthetic engineer. And he's been so dedicated and selfless working with us over the last 21, 22 years. So we thought it was appropriate to name it after him. But it's a universal modular prosthetic lower limb that's made from very durable, upcycled materials. And it looks high tech, and it is high tech. And so that's also, it's almost like a positive stigma, whereas the old prosthetics could look very, very like scary, almost intimidating. And so the kids actually like to show this off. And it has a foot that appears to look like a real foot. And it's got a socket for the stump of the lower part of the limb to go in. And it can navigate rugged terrains. It's light, and so it's light enough for children of all ages to use. And it's designed to be used in very difficult and a variety of terrain climates. So you've got climates that can be very, very hot, and you can have very rough, like non-paved terrain. And this kind of satisfies everything. And so what we've done is, in designing it, we were able to go to manufacturers and get the price negotiated down to $150 per limb. And so, when you compare that to what it costs to get a limb in the United States, a similar limb might be several thousands of dollars. And here we're able to get it for $150. So that $150 that someone donates through Rocktoberfest buys a limb and allows for that to be serviced over several years. So that's an incredibly impactful use of funds. And we felt our model used to be raise money and then we'll give money to their project partners in the different countries, and they can use that to buy the componentry and then provide the services. But we wanted to make sure that everything we do is watertight and that there's no ability for anyone to use the funds that are given to us for any other purpose. So by providing the limb kits directly, they can't abuse the system, or it's much more difficult to abuse the system. Therefore, we know that the products that we're providing are going for and being used for the purpose and for no other purpose. So it's a way to control and manage risk, in addition to making sure that the quality of product in terms of prosthetic meets our standards and will be maintained.
Well, that certainly is a lot of fascinating information. And for our listeners out there, I know we have listeners all over the globe, Mead. Maybe they can't be in Chi-Town on October 16th or in NYC for October 10th. But really, you want to go to the Chi-Town one. Who are you kidding out there? How can they get on board to support A Leg to Stand On, Mead?
So on our website, which is, again, the acronym for A Leg to Stand On, it's ALTSO.org. There's plenty of information on ourselves. There's our financials are on there. Everything we do is transparent because if you've worked hard to earn that money, you should know exactly where those dollars are going and know and feel confident that they're being used for the purpose that they're intended to be and represented to be used for. But on the website, you can also learn how you can help and you can donate. Obviously, that's a very straightforward way to do it. So you can contribute by sending a wire, sending a check, using a credit card. There are all sorts of, money transfer mechanisms. You can give crypto, and you can also pledge. Now, we always encourage people to give in non-monetary ways, by holding, events that help A Leg to Stand On gain awareness and support through leveraging their relationships. Have a bake sale or a walkathon or a wine tasting if that suits you, and use it as an opportunity to teach friends and we find teach children, because children in the West, particularly in the United States, they're very privileged and they don't see disabilities often on the streets because we have a great medical system, relatively speaking, and we solve for that. So it's really important for kids to realize how fortunate and how blessed they are to have their mobility and the functionality of all their limbs. So giving them an opportunity to see, and we have thousands of pictures on our website of the children that we've helped. There's a little story about them, and it really personalizes it. So it's a very valuable way to teach children and make them understand how lucky and blessed they are to have been born here and had the access to the medical services and care and opportunity. So we welcome if people have ideas and they want to do something in cooperation with us. We're a small organization because we want to keep our costs to a minimum, but we encourage you to reach out by email or even call us. All of our information is on our website, and we're happy to partner to help promote what we're doing and leverage your willingness or someone's willingness to get behind the organization.
Speaking of being fortunate, Mead, you and your team have been kind enough to offer 2 tickets for our listening audience out there, which is fantastic. So we'll put together something, listeners. You'll see it soon. Keep an eye on it in the pros and on social media. We'll come up with a good way to distribute those tickets. So you folks can go sample the Chi-Town event. When you go, I want to see you folks out there supporting the silent auctions and everything else. It's a good event. It's a great cause at the end of the day. But Mead, thank you very much for doing that for our audience. One last thing. When we chatted a couple of years ago, you were just in the nascent period of starting to take crypto donations as well. I'm curious, is that still the case? How's that endeavor going?
So crypto, I think, is kind of its own animal, and we can take it. You have to contact us to discuss how we'll have it transferred. But we were working with a program before that was taking it, but they were charging fees after a certain level, and so we wanted to make sure that we reduce those expenses. But you can certainly call us, and if you want to donate crypto, we'll work together with you to make sure that that's done. And of course, everything that's donated, whether it's in crypto or in cash or a credit card or however the donation is made, even if it's in kind, if someone's got wheelchairs and they want to donate those, those we have to make sure logistically that can be managed. But everything that's donated, you will receive a receipt for that, which will evidence that it's 100% tax deductible. So we are a 501c3, and any contribution that's made or any donation is going to be fully tax deductible.
There you go, listeners. That was ALTSO.org, ALTSO.org. That, of course, stands for A Leg to Stand On. The 2 dates coming up, October 10th in New York City, October 16th for the cool kids here in Chi-Town. I will be at the latter event. Sounds like a couple of you at least will be as well. It's a great event. Go support a great cause and listen to some great music. It's a win-win, Mead. How can you lose, sir?
You can't lose. You can just have a lot of fun. So I strongly encourage everyone to come out. And there are also some really super sponsors. Just again to give people an idea of the kinds of organizations that support us. It's organizations like the CME and ICE and other major firms. So I think it's a really super way to network. ADM Investor Service has been a huge sponsor. There's just all sorts of great organizations. So it's an opportunity to meet and greet and celebrate doing good for others.
There you go, a leg to stand on. ALTSO.org, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. I hope to see you there in the Chi-Town event. That is going to do it for us on the network today. I don't think my voice can handle much more, listeners. 3 shows today. That was a lot, but don't worry, we're back at it tomorrow. No rest for the wicked. I will be beaming in from the SIBO, I believe, for the option block. And then after that, for this week in futures options with our friends over there at CME. Friday, of course, volatility views. And then once more for all the pro folks on options oddities. Then we're back again on next week. Man, the interview content is coming fast and furious. So stay tuned for next week when we have another great Options Insider Radio interview session. Stay safe out there.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.